Hi folks, my name is Jim Worthen. I was looking at one of my favorite things, baseball. You can see we have the background of the stadium down at La Playa, yeah. Anyway, Pershing Park City College, and it's where the Santa Barbara Foresters play, and that's part of our topic tonight. The Santa Barbara Foresters are an incredible story, only overshadowed by their head coach, Bill Pintard's story, and they're quite kind of intertwined. Records of all kinds, and we'll go through with you how they happen, what they do, and how you could look forward to next season. But first, Bill, where were you born?
I was born in St. Albans, Queens, New York City.
New York?
Yes, sir.
Well, we'll come back to you. You have a tie to New York now and professionally. And how long did you stay in Gotham City?
Well, not too long. We moved. My dad was in construction, so he moved a little bit, but I was basically raised in Bergen County in New Jersey. We moved out of New York when I was young, and I was raised in a really beautiful town called Ridgewood, New Jersey, which had to do with ties to my Yankee fondness, and it was just a wonderful place to grow up. People think of New Jersey and they think of buildings and cars. Well, we could go fishing 2 blocks from my house. I had a ball field right across the street from my house.
But when you were born, the Dodgers and Giants left.
No, they were still there. They left when I was 10.
Oh.
They left in 1957.
Yeah.
And that shocked New York, and especially Brooklyn and New York, where the Giants played. But yes, that's where my upbringing was, and then I moved to California when I was 16 years old.
16.
Yeah.
So you went through the first part of high school in New Jersey.
Right, and then my senior year at Arcadia High School.
Play ball?
Yes.
Which kind of ball?
Back growing up, I played in the fall. I played football. We had Pop Warner football. In fact, that's what they called it. It's like YFL here. And my dad was a coach with him and Jim Stroker. And in fact, my dad even made, the fields we played in didn't have goalposts. My dad made some goalposts out of wood, and he would hoist them up for every game. And we couldn't kick an extra point, but we would try. And so in the fall, I was a football player, and I loved football.
Spring?
And winter, I played basketball.
Oh.
And then one year I wrestled in high school. I was a wrestler. And then in the spring was baseball. And
so you were a semi-athlete?
Semi.
Yeah.
Not very good in any of them, but I loved playing, and I loved competing. I think the biggest thing was competing.
I've had a minor injury to my back in football in high school. And people say, well, these kids, you get there and you get injured and it's dangerous, and some even die, not as many as any other sport, but for the millions that play. And I said, I wouldn't give up anything for the camaraderie, the team, learning to be a team, learning the pain, well worth it.
Right. I have a lot of aches and pains, and I have a lot of metal in my body, but I wouldn't have done it any different. I just think the thing of competing with your friends and your teammates and trying to be victorious was just something that really motivated me at a young age, and I actually loved it. And I got a lot of it from my parents, because my mom was a big baseball fan and my father was a fan of all sports.
I tell people they don't have any concept about baseball. I said, if you are a minor league baseball player, you go to spring training, you go through the spring training games, and then you get called up to the majors. By the time you get through the World Series, if you're that lucky, you've played 220 games.
Yeah, about that.
People don't realize that, baseball isn't like football every weekend. It isn't like basketball, 80 games in a season. A player in baseball, and that's starting very young, like guys in the Foresters, are committed to 200 games in a year.
Well, yeah, there's 162 games in the major leagues, and you mix in about probably 30.
When did it go from 164?
It's 160. It used to be 154.
Okay.
And then went up to 162. Minor league seasons aren't quite as long. They're about 100 to 110. It depends on what level you're in. And then you have spring training games. And then if you're not fortunate enough to break camp and go with the minor league team, you play extended spring games. So it's not quite 200, but the number is, the major leagues, they're playing almost every night.
Right.
And even the Foresters, we played 6 days a week, which they're not used to, because in college they usually maybe will play a 3-game series and a Tuesday game. So they play 4. And then this summer, because of our schedule in our league, we played 13 games in a row. 13 games straight.
In the playoffs?
No, during our season, because 4th of July fell on a Monday, which is theoretically usually your off day. So we had a string going on. And I don't think we're ever going to do it again. I think we're going to go to 6 games a week. Next week, 5 games. 6, 5, because these young players, they're not used to it, and they have a propensity to get injured when they get tired, and it's just really too much, because they go from 4 to 6, and it becomes a grind. But in our league, that was what we were dealt with our schedule, so we really don't whine about things, we just do it.
Well, let's go back to Bill Pintard. When you went to college, do you play ball?
Yeah, I played at Citrus Junior College. I came here to play, but in those days, you couldn't go out of your area, unbeknownst to me. I didn't do a very good job of checking it out. I came here to play for Rusty Fairley, the great Rusty Fairley.
City council member and friend.
Yeah, and really good, great football coach. He really was. He was probably a better football coach than a baseball coach, but a great baseball coach. And actually, he became my mentor. When I took over for the Foresters, I would go have lunch with Rusty when I was having a problem about certain players or 2 coaches that didn't get along, or not the things that you wouldn't know unless you were a coach.
Incredible guy and friend. My narcissism causes me to interject into some of the stories. I did a show called Head to Head on radio, and we had 20 callers in 2 hours, and I'd get a call. This is Rusty. I'm in the garage with my son. I have a question about that. He didn't say Councilman Rusty or Rusty Fairley, the great coach. This is Rusty. I knew who it was.
Yeah, he was good. He was innovative. He was fun to play for. But then I went back to Citrus College, and I played at Citrus College.
Where's Citrus?
Citrus College is in Azusa.
Huh?
Azusa.
Azusa, yeah.
Glendale. It's right on the border of Glendale, and it's right next to Azusa Pacific. And we had an incredible team. We had a championship team there. Won 23 games, beat some of the powerhouses. Back there, junior college baseball, we get 3,000, 4,000 people at the playoffs in those days. Mm-hmm. One of the guys, I know you're a Giant fan, so one of the guys that played for the Giants and I had a really heavy rivalry. I was a pitcher, he was a hitter. His name was Darrell Evans. You remember him, he was a third base for the Giants.
Quite a home run hitter.
Oh yeah, he hit.
For years, he had the longest home run in Candlestick.
Yeah, he never got one off me, but he hit a ball about 430 feet to dead center fielder. Our guy caught it, and I remember looking over at him because he was rounding second by the time the ball got caught, and I was going over to back up third base, and I was thinking it's a triple, and our guy made a Willie Mays type catch over his shoulder, and I yelled over at Evans and I go, that's a can of corn, right? And we were just talking about that, he laughed. But then fast forward a few years later, I took my sons to a game at Dodger Stadium, and for some reason we had seats right behind the giant dugout, and I was down there with my kids, and Darrell Evans popped out of the dugout. And I'm an outgoing person and and I was the same way as a player. I talked trash before they had trash. And he popped out, and I go, 1967, Pasadena Lancers versus the Citrus Owls. It's Pintard versus Evans, and he scrunches up his neck, and he turns around, and he looks at me, and he goes, you had the biggest, and I thought he was going to say mouth. And he told me later he was going to say that, but then he glanced down at my two kids. He said, you had the biggest curveball I'd ever seen, right? He was really nice. And we talked, and then we kept in touch because Pasadena, if you go to Arcadia, there's two schools. You could go to Pasadena, or you could go to Citrus. We were right in the middle of both of them. So some of my
city colleges.
Yes, junior colleges. So one of my teammates was the catcher on that team. And I came up to bat because they didn't have designated hitters. And he was a really good friend. I mean, he's one of my best friends. And I'm going, John, tell me what he's throwing. Just give me one fastball. Just tell me when he's throwing a fastball. And he goes, yeah, here it comes. And the guy threw a curveball. I go, I looked back at him. I said, "You ain't no friend of mine." And anyway, to make that kind of quick. I mean, I didn't care about hitting. I was pitching. There was 2 outs. I really didn't want to get a hit because I didn't want to go to stand on first base. It's going to take 2 hits to score me. And they ended up walking me. And he had a fit. John had a fit that they ended up walking me. But anyway, so the college thing was good, and then I always had a tremendous love of the game that was instilled by both my mom and my dad for me. If you want to, I'll give you a quick story. When I was younger, my dad, my friends were going to major league games with their dads, and I really wanted to go, but my dad was working in construction. He worked hard on weekends. He had to do chores. I mean, it was a blue-collar family. And I said, hey, Dad, when are we going to go to a game, a major league game? And he goes, listen, you're such an itch. You can't even sit still in church. You'd be running around chasing fly balls. I don't have the time to spend. Well, you can learn to sit down. I said, Dad, I could do that. And he says, well, when you learn how to keep score, you can go to a game. So I said, well, how do I do that? And he says, well, you get a scorebook and you sit up there. I had an old radio, and it was a part transistor radio, and I could listen to the Cleveland Indians, I could listen to the Dodgers, the Giants, I could listen to the Baltimore Orioles. For some reason, this old radio could get games all over the place, but I'd mainly listen to the Yankees. So I'll never forget, he went down to Cobb Sporting Goods, and it was an annual trip for us because my birthday was in April, and that was the start of baseball season. And so we would go to Cobb, but he says, I'm going down to Cobb's. I'll be home. Make sure you get the lawn mowed. So I mowed the lawn. He came home, and he says, here you go. And it was a rolling scorebook. And they used to be, I don't know if you remember the color. The cover of it was this color, maroon cardinal. And he says, there it is. I said, oh, well, how do I do this? He goes, the directions are inside. And it was in blue ink. It was kind of hard to read. And it was telling you how to keep score. And I said, well, Dad, this is kind of hard. Well, you got a dictionary over there. And there's something that you have to learn. It's called reading comprehension. And when you can keep score, I'll take you to a game.
Oh, wonderful.
And so he says, so I know you're not doing your homework upstairs because I've seen your grades. So you're sitting there listening to the game. You might as well do something constructive with your time. So I'd keep scoring. I said, Dad, here's what I got. And he'd get the paper up, the newspaper, and he'd look up, because in those days they put all the box scores.
Right.
It was a different world. I mean, now you get it on your phone, but and he says, no, you can't score. You can't get an RBI on a double play. If you hit into a double play, you don't get an RBI even though the run doesn't score. Oh, okay. And a catcher's interference is an error, so you have to put that down. And finally he goes, "That's pretty good." And he'd check off. He'd get this thing. He had this old pencil, and it was red, and he'd put things through it, and he'd make me correct it.
Before we find out if you finally got to go to a game, do people still keep score?
Oh, yeah.
I know I've seen foresters behind the screen.
No, but there's people. I mean, I've gone to major league games still to this day, and they're older people.
Yeah.
Because people don't, I mean, and sometimes, and I've seen people keep score, but it's kind of a lost art, because you got everything computerized, and the computer tells you what the play is and everything else. But anyway, so that was my story. And so when I went to the game, the first game we ever went to was the Polo Grounds, and it was the New York Giants. And I don't even remember to this day who they were playing. But I went to the game.
They won, though.
And I don't know. I saw Willie Mays, and I kept score. And that was good. But the field, the stadium was a little different. And I listened to the Yankees. It was in the Polo Grounds.
Willie Mays, it had to be in the last 3 or 4 years they were in.
I think it was a little earlier than that, because Willie Mays and Mantle, they came up in the 50s. And Willie made that catch in that World Series, I think, in '54. And I'm not that much of a historian that I remember that stuff, but you just remember things out of your youth. It sticks in. And I had to work to go to a game. And when I got to the game, he made me sit down there and keep scoring. I said, "Dad, I can go get that ball. You stay right and you see your seat, right?" And then we went to next game. And so I was a Giant fan for a week, 2 weeks. And then he says, "What are you doing on Sunday?" I said, "Well, I was just going to go fishing with Butch." And he says, "Well, I got a ticket to the Dodger game." So we went to Ebbets Field. And Pee Wee Reese and Junior Gilliam and Charlie Neal and I forget Gil Hodgers, and you had Koufax and Drysdale, and Campanella was the catcher before '57. I think that was I think he caught, so that must have made it '56, because he got in a car accident in '57.
Was the Yankees?
No, the Dodgers. So, but the thing about the Dodgers that was awesome, it was in Brooklyn, which is was at that time a smaller borough in New York City. Well, the fans, when you left the stadium, you could walk around the warning track and go out through center field. And it was the coolest thing, because you could go down on the field. And people weren't out running out there and grabbing the grass and taking it home for a souvenir like they would deface. I mean, people were very respectful.
Yeah.
And so I was a Dodger fan. I thought they were pretty cool. I liked their uniforms. So I was kind of a Dodger fan. But the games that I got clearer on my radio was the Yankees. And I always loved the Yankees.
I was going to ask how you could be a Dodger fan at a time of DiMaggio's, 3 DiMaggios.
But the DiMaggio wasn't there when I went. There was a young guy that wore number 7 on his back, and he was like a movie star looking. And his name was Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
And he was a guy that we all looked up to. And so I went to the Yankee game. And it was Yankee Stadium, and there was the monuments of Babe, Lou, Gehrig out in center field, and it was absolutely. The other stadiums were nice, but there was an aura around Yankee Stadium, and then you saw all the pennants, and you saw all the World Series championships up on the scoreboard, and the Yankees were playing, and they were playing Baltimore. And they were losing 2-1, and I'll never forget. It was the bottom of the 9th, and there was 2 outs, and I remember number 7 coming up, Mickey Mantle, and I said, "Dad, the Mick, he's 0 for 3." He says, "You better pay attention, son, because he ain't going 0 for 4." And the words were barely out of his mouth, and pop, boom, and it sounded very loud, and it was a majestic fly ball that went up into the upper deck at Yankee Stadium, which is a shot. I mean, it's a nuke. And so I became a Yankee fan.
I've been meaning to ask you this privately and other people in baseball, but I don't understand. Every time I look in baseball and football, somebody's on the injury reserve. Mm-hmm. You know, the players used to play with their injuries. They didn't play, they didn't go take 15 days off because they had pulled a hamstring. They played through it. Why?
It's not so much the players. These teams pay a lot of money for these players, and they have an investment in these players. And they sign them out of college or high school, and some of them get millions of dollars. Some of them get $100,000, but they still invest it. And now with medical science so much better than it was when they played, before you'd say, we say take an Advil and play through it. Well, they didn't have to take an aspirin and play through it. But they have a lot of money invested in these guys, and they don't want them playing hurt and getting aggravated, and then you lose them for the rest of their career. Right. Yeah, it's old school. It's an old school way of looking at it. Well, these guys aren't tough anymore. Well, gosh darn it, they also didn't face 90-some miles an hour. Like, Teixeira, what was his first name? Teixeira, he was a Yankee guy. He was a big hitter. Played for the Angels one year. Well, he got hit in his hands, and he tried to play through it. Well, he hit 220. And they go, God, he's lost it. He's a bad player. No.
Every time he swung the bat, it hurt.
Yeah. So,
and
anyway.
Concussion protocols have changed both football and baseball because, and maybe rightly so, coaches, teams, and now even some players are afraid of a concussion when you shook it off, and so you were seeing double. Maybe one of those had to be a pitch.
Yeah, one of them. You could hit one of them. Well, sometimes they saw double because they had too much to drink.
I was going to go back to Mantle and
those guys and Whitey Ford and
they played drunk.
It wasn't the concussions. It was the amount of whiskey they drank the night before, but. There you go again. We live in a different society, and people were suing the leagues for bad football helmets, or guys were getting concussions. And an athlete's playing career, the baseball career used to outlast the average football career. It used to be longer, but now the average baseball career, believe it or not, if you get to the major leagues. You know how many years it is?
4.
Yeah, you're exactly correct.
And same thing in pro football.
I think that's down more.
Yeah.
I think that if you get on the team, I think it's down
and
more.
Yet,
but we have more teams now.
Yeah, and yet Tom Brady's going into his 40s.
Well, that's Tom Brady. I mean, he's not of this earth. I mean, he just took a sabbatical. I don't know what for, but the other thing is, Jim, is technology is so on the IR. Before we used to say, well, the guy's got a bad wing, he's got a bad arm, and they called it a wing. Well, now they know. Well, it's a labrum tear in his deal, or he's got bicep tendonitis.
No way to treat it.
And they know how to treat it, or he's got an ACL tear in his right arm. And so they know how to do it, and they do surgery, and 2 years later they come back. Like if you look at Verlander today, this guy that's pitching for Houston Astros, there's another Tom Brady type character. I mean, he's going to win the Cy Young, and he's 39, and he had ACL surgery when he was 37. So there are guys that chief it out. It's not really the players. The game's just evolved. There's more about health. It's more about afterlife after the game of baseball. Pro football players used to die at a very young rate because of all the steroid use. Then baseball got into
And drinking.
The steroid use, and drinking, and not taking care of. Younger people have a thing, a tendency to think they're invincible, that it won't happen to them. I know I had that.
Don't we still?
I'm a little bit more realistic. Cancer and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to chew tobacco for a long time.
I know.
And I couldn't quit. And it got the better of me. And then I just realized, what am I doing?
But you didn't give up sunflower seeds, did you?
No, I eat sunflower seeds. I mean, I'm a very oral guy. I mean, yeah, it's and gum. But now they ban gum from some places, and they ban sunflower seeds when you're playing on AstroTurf. So it's all kind of relative and stuff like that. But guys, I'm sorry I got off on the wavelength, but keeping score that it was something that I had to work for. My dad made all of us in the family. If we wanted something, we had to work for it. And I wanted to go to those ball games, so I had to learn how to keep score and also give him peace of mind that I'm not going to wander off somewhere.
Yeah, so you were married, you were in Santa Barbara in real estate, 2 sons. The one I didn't know, Ethan?
Yes, Ethan.
Yeah, he ended up in doing some sports in college.
Yeah,
he was the water boy for Cal Berkeley.
He wasn't really a water boy.
I know,
but he
didn't play the game.
No, he didn't play, but he was the manager. But what he did, though, he scripted the practices. Marucci would tell him, okay, we want to cover this and this and this. We got 2 hours. So he would say, okay, you're going to spend this amount of time on this, and he'd have him prioritize it. So Ethan would lay out the practice plans for him. They do a lot of stuff. Yeah, they're on the headset, and they have to make sure their headsets they're on. But they had more duties. In fact, he got an award for the most inspirational player award, and he wasn't a player. So
I was right, Cal Berkeley.
Cal Berkeley. And he graduated from there, and they had a good teams when he was up there. He was a really good baseball player and really good basketball player at Carpinteria High, and he and his brother, they won under Lou Panazon, who is probably the greatest coach I've ever been around. He could not know how to swim, but he could coach women's water polo, and they would win. That's what a great coach, and he's a great person, and his integrity. And he's also my mentor. I still talk to him. I was thinking about retiring, and so I called him. And he came in and we sat and we talked a while.
In 5 years, 10 years?
Well, I was thinking about, retirement. When you get to my age and stuff like that, you got to, you have to be real about certain things. And as long as I'm relative and as long as I care about winning and losing, I care about instructing young guys, it's a viable thing.
I was raising funds for bury you at second base.
Yeah.
So, boy, you mentioned Lou Panazon, you mentioned Rusty Fairley, all people that I saw more at a distance than you did, but just great leaders.
They were great leaders,
and instilling in the young men, and that's something I noticed with the Foresters as I got to know the guys better. Ethical, honest, some devoutly Christian,
yes,
without pushing it on other people. You'd know it because out of its jersey would come across, or talking to the host families. So, but that's more the nature of baseball than any other team sport. And I think it's because of the family atmosphere, the team closeness. It's pretty hard to be a rebel, in a team.
Well, they do have it. I mean, they have camaraderie and chemistry in other sports. I mean, we're in a dugout. It used to be our own private little world. I mean, every other sports, the bench is out there. We could go in the dugout, and hide out. People couldn't go in there and everything else. Now they got cameras in all the dugouts in the major leagues. But we are...
don't throw the water jug against the wall. It'll be on national TV.
Yeah, right. But they don't care. They do it anyway. Paul O'Neill,
yeah.
he got a water jug when he retired. But, I think when you're on a team, and we talk about this, I think society in general is really in a bad place. And I mention that to my guys. I talk about society and I talk about respect. And is there a lot of respect in the world today? Do they respect each people for their differences? There's still a lot of racism in this country. There is people that, some people don't care for somebody because they're a Democrat or a Republican. I mean, this is America. You're free to have your choices, and you shouldn't be chastised for that. So I tell our guys, I said, listen, if you think, and they said, yeah, I think society's kind of in an interesting place here. There's a lot of acrimony. There's a lot of anger. I mean, we have road rage, for God's sakes. I mean, so I say, we need that. Baseball, you're a baseball player, and we often talk about the integrity of the game. We really do. We have umpires and things like that. They're a position of authority kind of on the ball field, and you have to respect some of their decisions. But I think we just need to hire. It gives me a segue into talking about morals and values to these players, and I don't know if they hear about it besides just winning and losing. Winners take care of winning.
Yeah.
Winners win. And what's a winner? And a winner takes in a lot of things that makes you a strong person. And we talk about that. And I said, we have higher standards here on the Foresters than society does. We're not going to, we don't accept prejudices. We don't accept excuses. We accept guys that are accountable. You need to be accountable. And then we talk about what are the qualities of winners? What do you need to have to be a winner? You have to have work ethic. And we talk about these things. And guys, and I think they look at it because I don't know if a lot of people dwell on all that stuff. So that's kind of a cornerstone of what us, of the Forester mantra, is working hard and being respectful. And basically treating, the old adage, treating people like you'd like to be treated. Respectful. Our coaches are respectful of our players. You go to some programs and these players are just pawns for them to manipulate so they can get more money or they can keep their job and stuff like that. I'm going to keep my job.
I enjoy harassing the umpires.
Yeah, you're a fan. You're a fan. Yeah, you can.
And
so do I.
Back in the day at UCSB's and Al Ferrer's teams, I would be brutal to the umpires, and I think I got thrown out of a couple of games.
As a fan?
Yeah.
You must have been really brutal.
Horrible. And no, I think it was what I was saying about coach on the first baseline and wouldn't quit. I still, sit behind.
So you were one of those guys.
Yeah, I sit behind home plate.
Your kind is still there.
I sit behind home plate and I tell the umpire when he's missed his own strike zone, and I'll even say, "You owe us one." And surprisingly, frequently, there's a call that I would have said was a ball, and he gives it to strike to make up for it.
They say they don't do make-up calls. No question, they do. They know when they screw up. But it doesn't mean that you have to be... I have disagreements with umpires. I mean, I
just wish you would be more vociferous and get thrown out of games when I'm there. But
well, I didn't get thrown out of one game this year.
No.
Because... first of all, I wasn't going to change things. But if I've lost my stuff, though, I lost it on national TV in a championship game. And the umpire says, "Billy, I know you didn't like that, and I don't like it, but And I was losing my stuff. And he goes, you know, Billy, I don't want to throw you out. You're on national TV right now. And I said, I don't care if we're in my mom's damn living room. You know, you blew that call. And
now, you can be called Coach Pintard. You can be called Bill Pintard. And you can be called Billy. What do you prefer people yell at you?
They also call me Pinner. A lot of my friends call me Pinner. In fact, I call my brother David Pinner, and he calls me Pinner. So Pinner is just a nickname that I've had because of Pintard. But my family calls me Billy.
So I'm family.
Yeah.
I yell, go get him, Billy!
Yeah, my family calls me Billy. Billy Martin was my favorite coach. I liked the way he did things. In fact, we even have this crazy play that we put in, and it was a Billy Martin defense on a bunt. And he was a great manager. He just he got sideways with the whiskey a little bit. But we all have our Yankees. Oh, you want to name what team he managed? He managed the Yankees 4 times. He got fired 4 times. He managed them 5 times. George and him. Billy stood up for what he believed, and Billy didn't take any crap. He pulled Reggie Jackson, who's a Hall of Fame guy, out of the game in the middle of an inning, and met him at home step. And he was about 155 pounds, and Reggie Jackson was a bull. He was 195 pounds, strong as an ox. And Billy was ready to fight him. That's not why I like Billy Martin. I just like this style. But yeah. So anyway, those guys that you were talking about, though, Panazon and Rusty and stuff like that, were my mentors, and I did learn. Baseball is a game. There's many ways to skin a cat, but baseball is kind of like, to get your knowledge, it's kind of like you go through a smorgasbord. It's kind of like going through a buffet. And if the cream corn doesn't work for you, don't take it. You know,
it may work for somebody else, but not you.
Yeah, not you. And it's the same thing. I've learned a lot of coaches. Augie Garrido had a big influence on me. He's the coach at University of Texas in Fullerton. Was the winningest coach in college baseball. Mike Gillespie had who recently passed away. Both of them did.
Who was the first coach?
Augie Garrido.
Oh yeah. That's a game I got thrown out of in Fullerton as a fan.
Yeah. Well, Augie was a philosopher. I knew Augie well. Augie was a philosopher. He took me when I was a young coach. Actually, I was a young coach at Carpinteria High School, and I went and watched Fullerton undress UCSB. And they had certain plays that were amazing. They were automatics. The coaches didn't give signs. If there was a guy on a first and second, and you had no outs, and you were a 7, 8, or 9 hole hitter, you did one thing: you bunt it. Mm-hmm. And it was up to them to get a read to see which side they would bunt. And so I was fascinated. And then he would steal third, and I used to steal third. Even with 2 outs, I would steal third. And everybody says, "Why are you doing that? It's crazy." Well, Coach Garrido told me, well, there's 11 ways to score from third base, and there's only 2 from second: a 2-base error or a base hit, or a home run or a hit. And so I remember calling him up on the phone after I watched this team, and I was fascinated about this team. They were really good on every facets of the game. They could run, they could steal, they would bunt. They would do a surprise steal against the book. He didn't play it by the book. And so it was just fascinating. So I called up Fullerton the next morning, Monday morning, and I got the athletic department. I got the athletic secretary. And I said, "Hi, my name is Bill Pintard. I'm a coach up in Carpinteria. I'd like to speak to Coach Garrido. Could you connect me to his office?" And she chuckled a little bit. And she says, "Well, I'll call down to the shed. He might be down there in the equipment shed." You know, you think Coach Garrido's going to have his office. Well, they had a shed down by that, I forget the name of the film.
When he was at Fullerton?
Fullerton. And he built that stadium, though, because he built these most incredible teams. Yeah. And so I call down there, and this guy answers, and I go, "Hi, my name's Bill Pintard. I'm a coach at Carpinteria High School, and I'd like to speak to Coach Garrido. And he says, well, what do you want to speak to him about? I said, well, I was at the game this week, and he ran some plays that were just incredible, and I just wanted to take a minute of his time because I wanted to get better, Jim. I wanted to see what he was thinking. I wanted to be the best I could be, and I thought I'd ask kids. And I picked Al Ferreira's brain too, because Al Ferreira was a good coach, very good coach. And so,
his son played for me in Pony League.
Well, I had all three of them.
Yeah,
I had Cy, Rye, and Ty.
Yeah, I had Ryan and Ty in Pony League.
Yeah, I had all three of them. And so, if all three of them, you get Al.
Yeah,
which is the fourth. But anyway, so I said, well, so I had some questions, and he says, well, what are those questions? I said, with all due respect, sir, I'd like to talk to Coach Garrido. And he says, you got him. Let's go. Bring it. And it was on the phone. And I go, Coach, so forget all that stuff. You took enough of my time. Ask me those questions. So I asked him. He goes, you're a pretty observant guy. What are you doing? And I said, tomorrow. I said, well, I have 6-period PE where we work out, but we're not allowed to practice because CIF rules. And he says, well, if you can, why don't you come down and you can come down to our practice and you can ask me all those questions in person. And I will answer them all because I like your style. You want to get better, and if I can help you get you better, I'd love to do that. And so I did. And I went down there, and then he took me out to dinner, and then he took me to Blackie's Bar in Newport Beach.
two coaches, kind of contemporary of the era, Grow and Ferrer.
Yeah. We're talking a lot about baseball. We're getting a little bit off the Foresters.
The only major leaguer that he didn't play in the major leagues. He went to football. That I played ball with was a guy named Del Rio.
Jack Del Rio?
Yeah, Jack Del Rio and I played. I was fourth string on the same football team, and Jack, his brother Tony was a 5th year or 6th year senior in high school, and I remember when Jack came on the USC baseball team as catcher, and he was an All-American catcher. And I remember getting behind the dugout and harassing him and telling him, I knew you when. And of course, he went on to coaching and playing football.
He was a Raider coach.
I went on to playing in the NFL and then Raider coach. And
I still think he might be an assistant somewhere. He's a great football guy. He was a great player.
Great guy. His brother was crazy as hell.
So was he.
Well, not as crazy as Tony. Young football player, you go into the bathroom, you have the Johns that are, on the wall, one John, and all of a sudden urine's coming between your legs, and it's Tony behind you being insane man. So let's now walk through in the last 15 minutes the Foresters, how people can get involved, the nuts and bolts.
No,
on the 18th, you have something.
Oh, yeah. September 18th. Last year, they had a party to celebrate our championship, and it was the second year in a row. The first year, we couldn't have fans. We won it in COVID year. We weren't allowed to have fans. Well, we were the only team in the league that played, so we played an independent schedule, and we won, but we couldn't have a party or celebration. So the next year, my brother Dave Pintard, who runs the Pintard Group, very successul commercial real estate.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you need any commercial real estate,
come to me.
Go see Dave Pintard and get some advice from Jim. So, anyway, so they had a party, and so we stood up there, and I said, "Boy, this was so much fun. Listen, if I win you another trophy, can we do another party?" And they said, yes. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to take care of the trophy. You guys take care of the party. And so we're doing it. So I kind of did a Pat Riley where I guaranteed a repeat. So, but now we have a three-peat.
Fundraiser or
Now we have a three-peat. Well, yeah, we're going to try to raise a little bit of money, but we're going to have a tri-tip. They're going to have a band.
Where?
At Carriage Museum.
Who?
Carriage
at the
Museum.
Carriage
Yeah,
Museum.
and
Yeah,
it's right there by the ballpark, which you saw that picture right there behind us, and so we're gonna have a little party there, and we're gonna thank the fans, and then they have La Boheme dancers. My brother is very close with them, and so they'll be there, and we're gonna try to get a few players that live here, but most of them are back to school. But we'll have all 10 trophies there, and it should be a great day. And we just want to thank our fans for being so supportive.
So how do people get tickets?
Well, they just show up at the Carriage Museum.
Oh.
If we get it, you probably can go to the website, sbforesters.org, and we should have a PayPal thing.
Do you know how much?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just going to bring the trophy. And it's not that much, maybe
not
$30. And
Oh.
there's a tri-tip.
Nothing's $30 anymore.
Okay, well,
we're in the Biden economy.
Okay,
50 maybe.
Well, whatever you suggest, they can make whatever they want. But we're going to have a good tri-tip dinner.
Yeah.
If you go out to a tri-tip dinner, you're going to spend $20, and then we have beer and wine there, and donate it.
Yeah, you had one of your sponsors, and we're going to start into that, but we'll jump to that here. You had a beer giveaway for strikeouts.
Yes.
If opposing player, the announcer would say, "Now this is the beer
batter."
Batter.
They call them the beer batter.
And if we strike him out, everybody gets a coupon to
Figueroa Mountain.
You're right.
They were great.
I got 6 of them. Well, I went to 12
I didn't get any.
Well, I'll take you out for a drink.
Okay. Well, they're
They're 2 for 1.
Right.
And then I think I told you the first time I came to a game inside the park. I used to watch it from Castile Street, and not that frequently, I have to be honest, but every once in a while I'd pull down there or I'd be going
Were you there a lot this year?
Yeah, 10, 12 games.
Yeah.
And first one I came to, I said, "You have beer?
Yeah.
Beer and baseball, I'm coming back."
Yeah.
And so my modus operandi was 2 beers, 5 innings, and I'm out of here.
Right. It's a great venue. It's so hard now to get a license for us to cook hot dogs and stuff like that. Everything is, I get it, it's the health department, but there is a taco truck that comes down there, and they're great tacos.
Well, they have hamburgers and salads. They do a great job.
And Pete Giordano's been very generous to us. He donates kegs to us, and he's been great for us. Yeah. So that's a good thing. Did you enjoy yourself at the game?
Oh, always. Yeah. I get to harass umpires.
Yeah.
One of my favorite: beer, baseball, and yell at the
umpires,
and cheer the players.
And then they have things there for kids. We have in between inning things. They have a
hula hoop contest.
Hula hoop, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a fun deal.
Let me walk through some of the. We've talked about the concession stand. You can buy Forester memorabilia, things like your shirt, not just memorabilia.
Well, if you come to our golf tournament, they give you these things.
Yes. And then you have, as I say, beer and the taco truck. You have interns who take tickets when you come in, outrageously priced, $7 a game and $3 for seniors. And you told me that you can buy a season ticket for the whole family for $100, which probably is 85 games because 4 people in a family.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's less than $1 a game.
Yeah.
I think we better.
Yeah, you're underpriced.
Yeah,
I need to work with you on that.
Yeah.
The news press this year has been building up its sports coverage, and they've done great pictures at the game. You have that boy, and
Oh my God!
And I
Fish.
I yell at him next to the umpire. It's run, 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 hustle, come on, hustle. And the guy, I mean, he is hustling, is picking up the ball, with a foul ball and a bat.
He's
running.
Unbelievable. Our players love him. And then we had two bat boys, Nico, and then we had Fish, and this is Fish's second year. Fish, here's to you, buddy. You're the man.
Incredible.
And opposing. Oh, he's got the greatest smile in the world. And he is my infield coach, Joe Hogeen. Joe is our first base coach, infield coach. That is his son.
Oh.
And he's
a better bat boy than I have want to talk to you about Joe. Yeah. Sometimes he gets a guy thrown out.
No,
I really think it's his fault.
It ain't Joe, man.
It's never the player.
It's always the player, buddy. It ain't the coach. We tell him, oh my God, that's another story.
Oh, but anyway, that's right. Joe can't be him because the way they get thrown out is rounding first and getting thrown out at third. It's got to be the third base coach. Who's he?
He's great. Steve Shuck. He's been with me 8 years.
Joe's been trash talking. Obviously,
Joe's been with me for 3 years, and then I got.
Who's your pitching coach?
Brian Aguilar is. He's our catching coach, and he works. These guys all get there at 1 o'clock. The players don't have to get there at 2:30, but we do early outs, and those guys are so dedicated. And I have a great coaching staff, and those three, there's Memo and the Tres Amigos. I mean, they work really, really hard. I'm really fortunate. I don't have to hit a fungo. I mean, I am so fortunate to have those guys. And they are also the staff of the Santa Barbara Dons.
Oh.
I met Steve when I went to Arizona, and he and I were coaching a team, a travel team, and somebody brought him along, and I just hit it off with him. And he used to live in Santa Barbara. He went to City College, and then he played at Pepperdine. And then he wanted to come back. So the workers left, and he interviewed, and he got the Santa Barbara job. So he got to move back from Arizona to Santa Barbara. Oh. And he's a Santa Barbaran. His wife's here. She works for a local law firm, and it's good.
I don't want to move you along too quickly, but I want to get everything in. Right. You have host families.
Yep.
And how does that work, and how do people get in touch with you to do that?
They go to Santa Barbara Foresters. It's sbforesters.org. And there's
almost everything we're talking about, they can go to that site.
They can go to that site, or they can call me at 805-684-0657 and say they want to be host families. That is the backbone of our program, because we get players from all over. Oregon, UCLA, Texas, a lot from Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Arkansas, Tennessee, and they need a place to stay, so they stay with the families. Right. And we've had really good. It's been very difficult the last 3 years. In fact, we had to turn players down because we didn't have housing for them. Yeah, well, and then it's expensive.
COVID.
COVID, and I understand why. 1 year is really interesting. We talk about how diverse our society is. Some people, if you were vaccinated, one person didn't want a person that was vaccinated.
That was vaccinated?
Wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
If they were vaccinated, she didn't want them. And then there were people that didn't want them if they weren't vaccinated, which I understand. I understand both positions, but anyway, the host family thing is really something.
There's in the 18 games at home, there's sponsors of the games. Mm-hmm. Montecito Bank and Trust is one that comes to mind.
Good sponsor.
Is that $10,000 a game, or how does that?
No, it's actually really reasonable. What happens? Alta Orthopedics is another one. Community West Bank is another one. They're just fantastic, and Alta's been with us, I guess, 10 years.
And they get somebody to throw out the first pitch.
Well, what they do is, if you have somebody that wants to sing, they can sing the Star Spangled Banner. If they want to throw out the first pitch, they can throw a first pitch. Their kids get priority in those in-between inning games. and we give them public address announcements if they
Right.
want to bring something about their company.
And there's always a minimum of 150 or so people. Sometimes I count crowds being in politics. I've seen it get up to over 200, 250 people.
Well,
Never seen it under 150.
It's great. And then they get to throw out the first pitch, and they get an ad in the program. It's an underpriced deal for what they get. But the best thing is we send them an e-ticket with their name on it, and they are able to send their e-ticket to their customers, to people that they want to be customers, to their employees. And it becomes a lot of companies don't do things with their employees. And so that's a great thing for their company to come out.
We're going to run out of time, but Bill, Tim Tremblay is an old friend of both of ours.
Yes.
And
It's going in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Tim Tremblay, September 3rd. He said he's promised to say from when he's getting the old Hall of Fame at City College that happy birthday to Jim Worthen.
September 2nd, is it?
3rd, my birthday. So September 3rd. Don't do anything about it. Anyway, Tremblay had a night, and he had about 50 people there.
Yes, and he bought them all beers.
He bought them all hot dogs.
And beers.
And he and he I think got a beer.
He's a good guy.
Later, next time I saw him, he said, we did 75 hot dogs.
He's great. He's a backbone of the community. Okay, I know we're running down out of time. I just want to tell you, this year's team, we started slow in June, and then we progressed, and by the time we got to Wichita, we were on fire. This was our 10th championship. It was the third. We tied the record for the most in a row, and that record, we're the first team in I think 45 or 50 years to win that, to win 3 in a row.
Just gave the World Series awards.
They gave the World Series awards.
And
who's
the manager of the year?
I don't know who the manager of the year was a guy named Bill Pintard. Yeah. But the most valuable player, Pintard didn't play, so the most valuable player was Gavin Cash. The home run award went to Nate Rombach. The leading prospect was Gavin Cash. I guess we're getting on.
No, go ahead.
Gavin Cash. Best offensive team was the Santa Barbara Foresters. Best team pitching, Santa Barbara Foresters. Leading hitter was Nick McLean, the third brother of the McLean brothers that have played for us. That was, let me see. And then we had the pitchers of the year that were Parker Smith made the All-American team as a pitcher. And
Billy.